and we're going to be going live at 3:05 on the radio.
All right.
Seconds away. So we'll let people start chiming in. Get your warm up done.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Going into Ring Rawlings right here. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower here in Northport, Florida. I am actually sitting on an exit in Georgia, heading south back home, and will be probably midnight before I get there. Yay. But I've got a very, very special guest in the house who called me to remind me this was the third Monday of the month and that he was supposed to be on the show. Mr. Phil Stokes, how are you doing there, buddy?
Very good, John. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. So in our great city, what's happening within the city of Northport today that you think should be talked about?
Well, we got some of the recurring projects that we've been working on. We're also taking a look, see, we'll have coming up in the next week, looking at a couple of different affordable housing developments that are being presented to the commission under the Live Local law. So that'll be interesting. Opportunity to, hopefully bring some affordable housing to our city. So that'll be a good thing. That'll be a good thing. And there's a couple of projects to look at. And then our favorite Mineral Springs, and we're meeting this week. We got budget workshops, so we're moving forward there and getting as much done as we can before the end of July, so that staff will have direction and can spend most of August actually working and focusing on their day-to-day while the commissioners are off for the month, and at least on official city business. And then we'll regroup back in September and have at it again. I expect the rest of July and certainly September is going to be fast and furious, especially on the budget.
So I'm gonna start out here with just a really quick comment. We've got organizations out there like Northport Forward. We've got some other organizations out there that are really being impactful with city commissioners. Can you kind of give your insight to what Northport Forward brings the city and the commissioners as far as the knowledge and the push for people to get involved?
Yeah, the group at Northport Forward, I started following them prior to even getting elected. During my campaign season, I used to attend all of them. It was a way for me to listen to city managers speak on issues before the city. It also gave me an opportunity to get to know some of the folks in the various districts. So, and then I've followed through, attending most all of them ever since. Northport Forward's a great group because they really don't immerse themselves in the politics of any one issue per se. Their whole approach is getting the community involved. Their social media is just such an easy way for people to vent or express their opinions, but it doesn't necessarily lend itself to a good interaction with those people who actually have facts and knowledge of what's going on. And that's where these Northport Forward groups meetings are really invaluable. A chance for the community to come together. I was at the one at Jockey Club the other day, and the room was half full with people who asked really good questions about Mineral Springs, about the ULDC. And, in everything the city does, whether it's decisions they make at the recommendation of staff, whether it's development projects that involve working with third parties. The third variable is the inclusiveness of the people in the community. Coming to the meetings, sending emails, phoning in comments gives an gives a citizen 3 minutes of opportunity to speak their mind, but it doesn't necessarily give them the ability to interact back and forth, ask questions, spend time after the meeting talking about something that specifically they're interested in or that they need clarity on. That's where these community get-togethers are invaluable. And they do it. Northport Forward's doing a great job at it. I think the chamber is trying to, in their own way, also put together task forces among their own organization to be able to meet with city commissioners and staff on things like the ULDC and things like development plans and rezoning that really do affect that group of people in the city and some of the larger vision plans for economic development. A lot of our chamber is small business. So to be able to understand some of the dynamics going on at a different level with larger development groups is important for them to see how they fit in and how they can help flourish alongside. And there are other groups out there that, can help, whether it's conservation people, whatever it might be, there are opportunities for citizens and groups of citizens to participate. And that's really important because while commissioners will make decisions based on, things that come before them, people do have an impact on us. Mineral Springs this whole process is a perfect example of how they can have impact. They can have say. And, do we do everything everybody wants? No, not necessarily. But it has and does impact how we think about things. And so kudos to all those groups, especially Northport Forward, because they really do try hard and they're extremely active and their mission is pure. It is. It's to help the city. It's to create an open dialogue among people, and that's an important thing for all those people who say we don't have a say.
In so from your point of view as a city commissioner, you're a citizen first, sitting commissioner now, um, being part of those groups. You are visiting those groups. You are out there paying attention. You're listening to those groups. If people were to want to get involved in politics, that's a really easy way to get involved, to understand what's happening, whether it be through the commission, whether it be through Northport Forward or some other group that's out there. But those tend to be influential pieces of what you guys put together on your pie list of representation of the city, isn't it?
Yeah, all the resources an elected body can use in order to make the best decisions for the most people. That's the goal. So, we hear from staff as things are brought to them and through them to us. We listen to outside participants who want to do business with the city. We listen to groups like Northport Forward. We listen to our advisory boards. There are a plethora of boards with countless vacancies. People don't think, oh, well, I go on those, so I'll meet once a month or every couple of months. And, commissioners don't listen to any of that stuff. That's not true. We read what they write. We look at the minutes. We sometimes they come before the commission and speak on various subjects, and they do have sway. It's important because, vocal voices, it's funny, the vocal voices out there who come to meetings or who write to the commission or call commissioners, they feel we're making an impact. We're speaking out. You should be listening to us. And while we do hear what they say, there are probably 90, 95% of the rest of the city who are either too busy or too involved elsewhere to really play a part. They may vote, they may not. People get elected, people make decisions until it really affects their household, their family, or their pocketbook. They don't much pay attention. And we get that. But the commissioner can't just think about the vocal voices, it has to think about all the other people and what's in their best interest. Do you know? So it's a struggle always, because with every issue, those that are actively involved, those that this touches, whatever that issue is, touches, they're there, they're speaking out, they're making their points. But we have to consider everybody and how this fits together in a big mosaic. And therein lies the difficulty sometimes, because people say, how much more can we tell you? We're right here in your face. We're telling you what we think. Why aren't you listening to us? Well, we're hearing you. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to do what you say, but we need to include what you saying to us in our decision. And that's a tough thing for people who are passionately involved in an issue. They say,
Right.
well, other people don't care, so why don't you listen to us, because nobody else seems to care, so do what we want. And
Well, and that
that's the rub.
it is a rub, and I that leads me into my next question for real. Uh, that you know, the way you put that is that a lot of times people who come together at City Hall and have, I listen. Everybody's got their voice. Everybody has their opinion. And I appreciate the fact that they're willing to put themselves out there, and have that opinion. That doesn't mean one that it's right, or that collectively that's what the opinion of everyone in the city is for a majority vote. And it's hard to tell what the majority vote is when you don't have a majority of the city actively involved on all topics. So it's a fine line to read as a commissioner a lot of times, where yeah, you've got somebody chirping in your ear over here constantly about what they want, um, and you have to go a different direction because you've talked to, maybe they've not had a group, but you've been out on the road, you've talked to enough people where you know that influence. And hot topic, hot button is Warm Mill Springs. You've got you've got a major clash between the people who want it not to change at all, the people who want it to change it a little bit, and then the people that want it to actually be something and a driving force for our community, and maybe incorporate more growth around it versus at Warm Mill Springs by in the embodiment of the water by itself. So
Well,
there's a bigger picture sometimes.
here's kind of what's interesting. The survey that was done was valuable, and the truth was, it really did tell us more than just that 85 or 80+%, almost 90% of all the people want low impact. It told us a whole lot more. It told us that in spite of that, people do want certain types of amenities. They would like to see the properties built back, the buildings, the amenities. They would like to see the 60 acres to a large extent be kept environmentally friendly, preserve and take care of the wildlife, and but at the same time create a low impact environment where people could enjoy some of that property. Um, they like the idea of some historic information. They like the idea of a place to eat, um, local Florida kind of feeding. I mean, there some of the things that survey told us led us to feel as if somewhere in that blend between two, in a current plan that a potential P3 partner might have, there is a middle ground. Yet it's interesting because it pointed out, at least to me, it did, and hopefully to other people, that there's inherent conflict. On the one hand, we want something very low impact, which I think everybody would like to see to help preserve the springs and the 60 acres. But in order to have a facility and an amenity and an attraction that we can be proud of, that can offer good basic services, that can add value and bring in people who may not want to particularly go in the springs, but may want to enjoy a 60-acre park-like environment, that costs money. And how do you pay for it? And that opens up other discussions. And I think sometimes all these surveys, all these, the charrettes that come, the meetings, they help educate so people can understand that there's a balance here. We don't have a lot of options. 10 years ago, there were more options than there are now at 2020, what could be 20, 25 million or more to not just renovate what's there, bring water and sewer, fix up that 60 acres so that it's usable. It's not usable now. And then to think about the cost of sustaining it, to maintain it, to keep it safe, to keep it usable, to keep it current, all those things cost a fortune. People would say, oh, that's great. Like Mr. English made a good point. He says, gee, why don't the city just take this to a referendum? And you know what? If we took it to a referendum and we asked the question, would you be willing to pay I don't know, pick a number, $500 more a year in your taxes, $300 more in your taxes, 200, whatever it would be. Are you willing to pay that year after year after year to do what has to be done at the Springs? I would say a resounding 90% plus would say, no way, Jose.
Correct.
I'm not, because I don't use it. I don't go there. And that would be a horrible tragedy for the 80 acres of Mineral Springs. I think the commission is trying to be responsible, saying that it can't or it shouldn't use a lot of taxpayer dollars. It should find a partner that shares the vision, that has the capability and the resources to operate the springs the way we want and the surrounding areas, to draw community involvement into work, not just now, but on an ongoing basis with our partners. So we can make sure that the sensitivity to the environment, to the culture, to the history is preserved. And somewhere in the middle is a way where everybody gets a few nuggets of the most important things to them, but nobody gets everything. And whether the city generates revenues of $70 million over 5 years or 50 million, I don't really care. I don't see that Mineral Springs is the economic driver for the city of Northport. It is one piece. Think about a Mineral Springs village that encompasses most of Ortiz with an art colony and retail shops and things, places to go that move its way up Ortiz that may in time attract participation with art and design school, where you could turn that whole area of unincorporated Sarasota County and Northport there and grow it into a beautiful area instead of what is a bit of a blight. I mean, you cross River Road and you've got that segment all the way down to past Biscayne that is like, ho hum, where am I? Is this a gateway to Northport? That whole area over 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years has unbelievable potential for the city and the county. And Mineral Springs could just be the launching pad for it if we do it right and carefully. We need to think way bigger, not smaller, and protect what we've got there. I think it is the most exciting project, while not necessarily the most important project, definitely the most exciting. And, I think the process is a good one. It's agonizing. It's tough to sit there hours after hours listening to people wail away and not ignore them, because what they say is valuable. And even more so, if the city makes the decision, if the commissioners decide to move forward, we don't need them to walk away in disgust. We need them to say, step up, be a part of this process. Assume for the minute we're going to do something here. How do we do it the best way we can? How do you help us do it better? How do you make sure we do not forget the message you're expressing to us? Alice White's the perfect example. Alice comes on the commission. She is our resident tree hugger, our environmental person on the commission. Yet Alice has come to understand the need for balance and economic, viability in our city. She's not a sellout. She was able to do what nobody else has been able to do, which is make the environment and conservation not an afterthought or a footnote, but a cornerstone of everything we do in the city. That's what all the people who advocate for leaving the springs alone or minimal impact, those people, regardless of the decision we make, they need to stay engaged. They need to help us as we navigate through the process, and they need to work with our partners in the city to see that we keep it that way over time. So this is just the beginning of a process. And again, I'm maybe jumping ahead because I don't know what the ultimate outcome and decision would be. You've heard me at the last meeting on the 10th. I would love to see, my vision would be to make Mineral Springs Village bigger than it is, bigger than the 80 acres, develop outside the 80 acres, do minimal amount of work on the 20 so our partner could spend the money buying up some land and putting his hotel and his condos adjacent to the springs. Do you know, in 2018, I don't know the name of the firm, but there was a study done that was the forerunner to the 2019 plan, and it almost shared the vision that I've had, which was build a hotel, build residences and other forms of commercial and retail outside the 80 acres. And there were cabins on the property and other things. Some of those were nixed. I'm not quite sure what all went on, but somehow over the course of a year or so, what morphed from that was the 2019 plan. There was a survey done in there where people advocated for no change or minimal, if any, development. And maybe that's what pushed commissions back then to come up with this 2019 plan that we all look at and compare to. But originally, it had a much grander scheme to it. And I would love to see that because I think it would preserve the 80 acres, but it has to be economically viable for our partner. And I don't know if it is yet, but I keep pushing it. It's my vision. I think for the first time, the people heard each commissioner share their thoughts on what they would love to see, because that's never, we haven't gotten there yet. And this is a unique partnership. This developer doesn't own this land. They can't just comply with the ULDC and the comp plan and come before us and say, well, here's what we want to do. This is a true collaborative partnership, and it should not be just between us and the partner. It should be between us, a P3 partner, and the city people who want to be involved in this. Between the three groups, there's no doubt we can come up with something that everybody will be a little bit unhappy with, but conversely, a little bit pleased with. And that's progress. I mean, the way I see it anyway.
Well, and here's the other side of it. You know, we want our city molded, and people are trying to mold it. There are people out there that are really, their expectation is, can we stop the growth? Well, the truth of the matter is, we're not going to slow down this locomotive, no matter what. Now, the government might slow it down. Things might happen externally that may cause that slowdown, like the last economic downturn we had, and on a national scale. But if we're talking about this momentum that we had back in 0405, and now the reigniting at an all-time high level right now. I think that we need to be involved, and we need to be a part of that transition, because it's coming no matter what. Those the rooftops here are going to dictate a lot of growth in a faster and more futile way. I think you can't approach 100,000 people and expect no commercial whatsoever.
Yeah, it is such a shame that 10, 15 years plus ago, commissioners and leadership in the city didn't bite the bullet and do some of the things that had to be done. I mean, we all heard the statistic: 8% of our city's non-residential development should be 20 to 30%. You know, Peter's been on your show multiple times and beats that same drum as do most of us. And it's frustrating because over the years, so much residential development's taken place that now to rezone, now to re-gear the city towards more industrial or commercial development is painful for certain areas of the city, and it's going to be. Um, it's hard to avoid that, but people need to see that balance. I mean, I'm a financial guy. You know that. Most people know that. I have looked at these numbers hard. Our growth will continue, whether we ever reach a quarter billion. You know, who the hell knows if we're going to reach 200,000 or plus. But I can tell you this: at 100, 100 and a quarter, 150, we're bulging at the seams. The cost of providing services, police, fire, public services, at a level, at a quality level that we do, and people don't realize we're not just average. The city of Northport's public services are not just adequate, they are superior. They're some of the best in the country, and we're proud of that. That's one of the critical draws. Other than, you know, it's a part of our quality of life and safety pillar that matters. That's why people like to live here. They feel safe here for the most part. They have a quality of life that they want to see retained. And the cost of providing that is astronomical. For every single family house that moves in, the cost of supplying its basic services is greater than the revenues received from that property. It necessitates increases in millage rate. We don't want Fort Myers millage rates. They're at 8, 9%, $8, $9 per thousand. And, you know,
Hey,
it's
the rule is if your phone rings on the show, you got to do 25 push-ups.
I'm sorry about that. I thought I had muted it.
No,
But
it's all right.
it's really it's really a frustration, and it's something that if you accept the inevitability, then it's how do we do it the best way? And again, that necessitates community involvement. You can see in the evolution of the ULDC that when the first drafts came out, and especially chapter 3, and people, you know, raised concerns, commission listened, it worked it through. There's nothing like take it or leave it all. It's, you know, we got to work through the details. Maybe this street's a problem. Maybe that, as you know, just because even you redo a ULDC doesn't mean that it's carte blanche for everything to happen anywhere it wants to happen. City commission and staff still have enormous control over what goes where, how we do it, when we do it, to what levels, and we do it. So, you know, it's all a process that people can't or shouldn't see as just purely adversarial, but rather inclusionary. Figure out a way. If it affects you, if it affects the area, get in there, talk to staff, talk to us, and we can figure it out. It may not end up being to their satisfaction, but it also may be. It may be, gee, you know, we don't really have to do it this way. We could do it that way. We hadn't thought about it this way. And that process is what we're going through. The good thing, and citizens should appreciate it, is not to knock any previous commissions, because by God, anyone who volunteers to serve their city deserves kudos. But I believe this commission is a commission that makes decisions and is not about to kick the can down the road on any of the major issues that confront our city. It's time to address stuff. It's time to make the best decisions we can. And if we screw something up, we make a bad decision, there's nothing that can't be fixed. And hopefully, our processes are such that we make very few, if any, mistakes. We won't please everybody. We get that. But we always strive to use what's becoming a worn out phrase, but a valuable, it's still as valuable as the first time you said it, is the best for the most. That's
Yep.
all we can try to do. And, you know, it's for the people out there who see it, who are affected by all this stuff. Take deep breaths. Don't give up. Don't give up on us. Understand, we are you. We care. It's about the same things you do. We want to do what's best for everybody. And a lot of times, it's information. I don't want to say that commissioners know more than anybody else or staff knows more than anybody else, but we have more information at our fingertips because of the positions we hold. And it's incumbent upon us to share those through a process with the public so that they can wrap their heads around the same information base we have. We still may not see things the same way, but at least there can be some foundational understanding and perspective as to how commission and city leadership made decisions or are making decisions about subjects, so that it's not just this, they're just sellouts, they're in the developers' pockets, they get kickbacks, they're this. No, it's none of that. What it is we work with all the information we have and try to really make the best decisions for everybody. And I get that some of those decisions are just totally contrary to what someone wants. That's going to happen. But at least you shouldn't fault the process. There's a process here that we try to follow. It's not self-serving. It's not hither thither. It's methodical. It's thoughtful. It's inclusionary, and hopefully transparent. So, really on my soapbox today, John.
I can tell. I love it. I love it. You know, I might have to change this to the Phil Stokes show.
No. Oh God, no! I hope not.
So Sean Kirkpatrick said he came in late to the conversation. Did I miss the part where having a state make? I'm kind of missing this. So Sean, if you're out there, kind of clarify this. The state make a state park for a county park. I'm not sure what he meant there, but we were talking about Warm Mill Springs, and Warm Mill Springs is part of our park system, and we've got a whole lot connected to county and state that are part of our incorporated parks into the city boundary, so to speak. We've got a good working relationship with the county and the state as far as that goes, but we're really not looking to change anything into a state park. It's all city park, right?
Yeah, and I frankly, for the years that
And
Mineral Springs has been a football kicked around by every commission that's come and gone for a dozen years or more since the county, since we bought out the county's position, or even since it went private, or came from being private ownership to county and city joint owned. Who stepped up? Who stepped up? Where's any groups that went to the state? I don't see anybody wanting it. I don't see anybody doing anything about it. I don't even see the city commissions doing anything about it for all these years. It's tragic to see the neglect. And furthermore, if we can get past this and develop some level of an organization that moves forward with the Springs, what about spending time, energy, effort, dollars, collaboration on how do we increase the springs flows? How do we get rid of all the wells and septics that are all around the area that are a bigger danger to the springs than anything else? And think
Bigger
of
picture.
all the things we could do if we had everybody's resources focused on how do we make sure the springs never dries up? What science is out there? How could we collaborate with universities or scientists who could help us understand what it takes to increase the flow of the springs and perpetuate it for on and on and on and on, instead of this fear it's going to dry up, so we're going to, nobody wants to screw this up, least of all developers going to put god knows how many millions into this. This is a perfect time for everybody to come together, come up with some sort of a plan that's reasonable, and then work together. The higher up in government you go, the less effective it is in my book. You know me, I'm not really a politician. I like being a public servant, but the higher you move in government, the less effective it seems to be. So, do you really think the state's going to do that great a job? Hell, the county just dumped $1.5 million a year burden on us, taking care of all the parks that were county parks. So, I don't see the state or anyone else riding in on a white horse to rescue Mineral Springs. I think it's ours. I think it's part of our Northport identity. And I think we should do everything we can to put together the best team to perpetuate its future and to work together. And, you know, uh, development doesn't have to be a bad thing if you're able to piggyback off of the original value that a developer saw, which in this case is the Springs, beautiful 60 acres. You know, all of this enhances the experience. So the key is do it the right way. We're not going to be a concrete jungle. That's not the plan here. It's not some kind of amusement park. It's going to be unique to this country. And if we do it right with a partner that has huge funds that he can use here and wants to use and really loves these springs. I've told people, you got to meet this guy. You got to listen to the way people heard a little the other day when he spoke, but this is a guy who's totally committed to the vision of the springs and wellness and the environment and the wildlife. You couldn't ask for a better development partner. So
Yeah, but you just layered this. You layered this. And the overview of that layering is if we don't figure out, first off, we got a partner. Number one, we have a potential partner right now who could not could not come in here with the attitude of let's destroy its surroundings in hopes that it might survive what we do so that all the money that I'm going to spend might be recouped. That's not the vision of anybody who's looking to sink money into a project. They're looking to figure out how they can keep everything maintained, how they can grow that spot and yet cover the nut that they're going to have to invest. There is such a thing in America of making money, but there's also that uh, caution of when you're dealing with a piece of property like this that you really have to take your time and the state's not going to allow anyone to come in there and bulldoze stuff without going through processes. So there's safety factors already built into that, along with the fact that if we don't address some of the old streams, the flows of the water, the septic tank, it's ironic to me that a lot of times you've got uh, a big portion of the population who is trying to really set back and say, well, everything's fine, but we truly have a septic tank issue over there. We truly have wells that's an issue. Public water needs to be addressed throughout our city, but I think over there, first and foremost, because that pressure that's coming off the springs, we know for a fact that there's one stream the mainstream that's already pretty much dried up. And we're talking about environmentally friendly conversation with people out there that are environmentally friendly. I don't think give crap, and no pun intended, about the septic tanks around there. They should be more irate about the septic tanks than the build out of Romeral Springs, because the damage is happening with the old septic tanks that nobody's governing, that really are leaching into our drinking water to begin with.
Well, it's tough too because you've got, let's face it, you got people who live all in and around that general area. Many of them rent out their spaces. They have property they own, it's investment property. So, the thought of a hotel or the thought of condominiums somewhere in the immediate area would certainly be a competition. Not to mention the cost of conversion. I mean, if you're outside the city, I mean, it's kind of expensive proposition to convert to water and sewer. Some people have invested money, not that in the not too distant past, into their wells and septic, but I think a lot of those properties have old wells and old septic on them, and but to cost spend 10, 20, $30,000 it might be to convert. That's an onerous thing, but we do offer our citizens in the city of Northport, we cap that investment at somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000. And I couldn't think of a bigger incentive for all those people in and around Mineral Springs to want to annex their properties into the city of Northport and really become tax-paying citizens of Northport. And by God, we welcome them with open arms because they really, for all intents and purposes, are part of our city. And they've kind of sat out there in this no man's land. And that area is just, like I say, I've shared some of my vision. It's just a spectacular area. When I think of an area that could be over the next 10 to 20 years, the most exciting areas of growth in our city, other than out near Toledo Blade and out east, could be that basic unincorporated area, that area from River Road all the way to the former Northport line, to the Biscayne area. That area is incredible. It's got all kinds of retail and commercial and revenue producing capability up off of 41, and all that area in and around on both sides. There's a lot of land, there's a lot of woods. I mean, what an exciting opportunity, if it's done well, to really make that a wonderful, wonderful corridor and entrance into our city. And especially with River Road expansion the way it is, that's going to be a major, major entrance to our city. And that whole area is ripe for wonderful development, from residential to retail, commercial, light industry. There's so much that could be done if you wished I could live another 30 years to see it all.
You might. Come on now.
I'm
I,
a
you
old coat.
well, we're in that same bracket, I think, or close. But uh, you know, I've been here 23 years and watched the city develop, change, try to shift gears, try to block things, have people that didn't want to see any growth at all. And I hate to say this, and I'm going to reflect backwards for a second. You know, those decisions to do all of the things that people thought were the best, like, let's not let us grow. We're the fifth largest landmass in the city, but let's keep us that way with 20,000 people. There's something to be said for what they were attempting to do back in the day, but the damage that's caused from that thinking can no longer exist when we now have over 83,000 people, and we're looking at 100,000 people soon, because at the rate we're growing, it's my turn to do push-ups. So it's amazing that that phone didn't ring before this, because my windshield time since I got up this morning has been on the phone. So that's the beauty of that. But um, this whole thing of people wanting to slow growth, I, I hope we can just wring our hands of that and understand that growth is not a bad thing. Growth sometimes in separate entities of our city, they have to happen for us to keep our tax rates down. If we don't grow our commercial side of it, there's some potential harm coming our way if we don't really take a look at the commercial side and make it flourish. Wormhole Springs could be very impactful with that.
Yeah, I since starting back even when I was running for office, I used to talk to people who, everywhere you go, it's like, where do you live? Where do you live? And people would say to me, well, I've lived in Northport and I live in Port Charlotte now, or I live in the eastern part out by Punta Gorda area out east though. And, and people talk, it's, we got to keep the city affordable. When you look at the property appreciation and you look at the cost of acquiring a new home, I mean, we don't even have some of the product that younger or older people could afford or want or need. That's an unfortunate thing. And in order to be able to do that, you know, you've got to make strategic decisions about how you use your land, and being a platted city like we are, boy, it's a major hurdle to get past all this stuff and to try to work with landowners who are willing to maybe forego a little bit of maximizing their profits to do what's in the best interests of the city and helping to diversify. It's a hard thing to do. It really is. If we could go back 20, 25 years and you could literally sit there with an open, a blank canvas and say, okay, here's where we're going to put everything. Here's how we're going to plan this city. Who figured this 65 years ago plus? People escaped from Port Charlotte, said, God, I got to get away from all that. I want to live out where nobody's going to bother me. No kids, no nothing. I just want to live out here in like on the land. And they did. And, you know, the average age was, God, closer to our age now than it is what it is now, which is in the low 40s. Look at how this has transitioned. Could anybody have figured it? Probably not. But hell, there's places all over the country that happened where people never envisioned there would be the development that there is. But here we are, like you say, it's a reality. So how do you manage it? Not control it. That frustrated me when I watched in Sarasota, this control growth, you know, control growth like stopping growth. I say manage it. Manage it the right way. How do you maximize where your priorities lie and do it in a sensible way? Are we ever going to be a Sarasota, a concrete jungle, or like no? Northport's not going to be that. It isn't set up to be that way. Christ doesn't have the infrastructure to do that. It's it was a swamp, for goodness sakes. Look at what we are. So we got to work with what we got, but try to picture you know uh, a 10, 20 years from now with expanded infrastructure, with a balance of commercial and industrial growth around the city where we can keep our millage rates at the lower end of comparable cities and allow people of all economic levels to be able to live here and enjoy the city. And wouldn't it be great to have a city where you could not only afford to live, but you could actually have a place to work and enjoy your life. So 90% of people don't have to go elsewhere. We forget about that a little bit sometimes, but it really is awful. I try to spend every disposable dollar I have in the city of Northport. I really make an effort to do it. That's where I pick the restaurants to go to. I mean, I want to help this city economically, but you need to have, places to go and things to do. within your city. And that's all part of this plan too. So it's hard, you know. Commissioners get elected, they feel the pressures of the public. They come and go every 4 years. I believe we finally got a nice, stable, very professional city management that understands what has to be done. And hopefully that stability will transcend commissions because we will all come and go. But, you know, this vision, this plan for how Northport evolves over its next 25, 50, 100 years is critical. This next 4 to 8 years is the most important time. It's one of the things that attracted me to run, quite frankly, because it's just a great city. And it all started with the people, really, really incredibly good people who love where they live, who love each other, who help each other. We're a unique city that way, a special city. Some of the most friendly people, nice people, salt of the earth people live here in this city. They're our asset more than anything. And so, you know, I think there's a coming together of all in this, I mean, short 7 years I've lived here. I really feel like it's a perfect storm, so to speak, where you've got a city government, you've got commissioners, you've got a city all poised to take that next big step. We just need to do it smart and in a way that tries to do the best for the most. And we'll adjust all along the way. It's just how things are.
So
Change is inevitable.
and the good news is next Friday, this coming Friday,
Yes.
who do we have on this show other than our great city manager?
Yeah.
Jerome Fletcher will be a guest for the first time on Real Talk. I can't wait to have him on the show. It's going to be fantastic. I'm
Yes, it is.
already over envisioning it in my head, so that's going to be good because I've got a lot of questions and really what's cool about this show, and you know this, you've been doing it long enough. Uh, we never practice. We don't send emails back and forth. We
No,
just
we
shoot
don't.
the hip on this. Next week's going to be a lot of fun
Yep.
because I do have questions for him. I've got questions from start to finish, and truthfully, he's ready. I did have a meeting with him over some other topics, and I really found it to be very, very easy to talk to, very understanding, very level headed, and very focused on what's the best for the city overall, and trying to work with people, work with groups. I got to tell you, I'm excited about the opportunity to have him on the show. I'm excited about the fact that he said yes to quarterly updates. So that's going to be like, I think it's going to grow into something much, much bigger than we have today. You guys being a part of the show every quarter, or every quarter, you being on every quarter. But the funny thing is we have a commissioner on once a month.
Yeah.
So the third Monday of the month, we have a city commissioner coming on. We have city parks and rec. We have public works. They're going to do some rotation now and really try to expand the show on that Monday and really encompass what the city is doing overall to really, I think, push the agenda of the people forward.
Well, I'll tell you, we truly are, and I know people will say, but you know, I spent a lifetime in the business world. I've dealt with hundreds of CEOs, chief operating officers, chief financial officers. I mean, senior management people in different companies. And I'll tell you, I've rarely come along and met somebody who really has the management capabilities, talent that this guy has. Is he right all the time? No. I kind of think it's refreshing that he isn't and didn't have city management experience because, frankly, I think over time, city managers sort of get worn down by the politics of it all. And after a while start to reach a point where it's like, okay, what do you want, commission? I got to deal with this commission, then the next commission. This guy comes here with ideas. He's a visionary, he's a leader. He leads, he doesn't follow. I don't want someone coming to me and saying, well, Mr. Commissioner, what do you want me to do? I want someone coming to me telling me, here's what I think we should do. Here are some of the options. Here are the reasons why. What do you think? Here's what I need from you guys on the commission as far as direction. And that's what you want, you know? And this guy, is he perfect? Nobody's perfect. Do people make mistakes? Yeah, everyone makes mistakes. But this guy loves our city.
Yep.
He spends every waking hour thinking about this city and engaging people. He loves to talk. He's going to be so good on this show. Like, I mean, he'll be up. He'll be hard for me to, like, you know, overshadow. I think hopefully lots of people will watch. Lots of people will weigh in with questions. But, you know, this is a guy who can take our city where it needs to go. And, you know, I'm so glad that for the most part, everybody's gotten behind him. His city team supports him. The commissioners support him. Most of the citizenry supports him. And those that don't, I think, just fear a little bit a leader who is out there trailblazing a little. And I think they should take comfort that there is a commission here, and there are always commissioners who will keep their eye on behavior to make sure that it stays within the parameters. But you want that lead horse to be pulling the team. And that's what he does. He's tireless and he's open minded. And I think the more people get to know him, the more they'll grow to love him like we do. And he's our biggest city resource. I really do believe in. We are a city full with resources, people resources. So, you know, I'm glad he's coming on. I think you're going to love it. And I think the people will love listening to it, even more than they like listening to me.
Yeah, well, you've been all over it today, my friend. But I've got to sign off. It's after 4,
Me
and
too.
I've got about 7.5 hours of drive time left on my windshield to get back to Northport, and I can't wait to do it. But Phil, one, thanks for the phone call to remind me it was you today, and I've had such a good time being with you today and spending this hour. It was fantastic.
Always do, John. I love it.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back and have a cup of coffee with you and figure the rest of it out.
Got it, sir. Drive safe, will you? Coming
I
back.
certainly will. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. This is John Rawlings with Real Talk Radio and Commissioner Phil Stokes in the house. I really appreciate him. And keep your eyes out and ears out for anything you can get active on in our city and push our city forward. Let's move it all in the same direction with love and careness and kindness. Let's keep going forward. So you guys have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. This is John Rawlings with Real Talk and Phil Stokes saying thanks and have fun. We'll see you later. Bye-bye now.
Take care. Bye-bye.